Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are doing great. I wanted to share a little story with you guys today. So when my husband was at work the other day, he met this digger driver guy who had talked to him about his daughter. He was telling James about how he suspected that his daughter may have autism, and he wound up taking his daughter to see a professional to get a diagnosis. In the waiting room, he was just viewing all the different posters that were on the wall, and one in particular stuck out to him. This poster had stated, "It's an insult to be normal." And for some reason, this had really rattled this guy up. He wound up going to the front desk and demanding what they meant by "it's an insult to be normal." He had said, "Why is it an insult to be normal when I'm normal? Are you saying it's insulting to be someone like me?" Now this had given me some food for thought. I can relate to the part of being different in the sense that, growing up having ADHD, being bullied, even being physically bullied, that I found solstice within my difference. I found comfort within my difference. My difference is what gave me hope for a better future because I could, in some ways, attach myself to that identity of I'm different and it's okay to be as such. So I totally get why, if you're going into therapy, for example, seeing those kinds of posters would offer you some kind of comfort and some sense of purpose. However, it did get me thinking. It got me thinking about what we perceive as normal, and it got me thinking about what we perceive as different. So let's first look at what is normal. Very, very basically, humans are all alike in the sense that we all socially organize ourselves. At its fundamental level, our social groups, whether they are small or large, all function by a core set of principles such as shared values and shared morals. This is something that we all share cross-culturally and throughout human history. At its very basis, it's all about survival. Without having an agreed, very basic set of principles, that social group is at risk of falling over. Let's take a look at traditional First Nations tribes, for example. Generally speaking, they organize themselves in a different way from very large societies that we see in perhaps Western civilization or the Roman Empire, for example. Being such small social organizations, little tribes, their main objective was to survive. So everyone in this tribe would agree to the common cause, the common purpose. And as a result, they would wind up having very rigid kinds of roles within their societies. And this is because they relied on each other for the survival of the tribe. Without one particular role being filled, the whole thing would fall down. For example, the role of the warrior. Without the warriors, another tribe would risk taking over. Without the skill set of hunting, they would not be able to bring food back to the tribe, and therefore they wouldn't survive. It's very similar within, say, perhaps a military group. Without one person within that group, they risk dying, they risk failing their mission, so they rely on each other for their survival. However, as individuals, despite our social groups, we do have small differences within diversity of thought and self-expression. Being able to capitalize and celebrate these differences are what has progressed humanity forward, especially in terms of, let's just say, intellectual progression. How many great philosophers have been before us? We've gone from very basic, archaic ways of thinking to philosophical thinking to scientific methods, and that's all thanks to developing the individual and the uniqueness of thought. Despite that, however, we still do adhere to very fundamental principles within our culture. So in a way, being different and normal can be true simultaneously, maybe just in different areas. So that's all good. I guess it's something we could all pretty much agree on. However, today, my food for thought resides around the pursuit of being different and the pursuit of not wanting to be normal. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I went through my childhood getting bullied. There were parts of my grades at school that were just not measuring up. My teachers would call me a dreamer and say that I would get distracted very easily, and I felt different to the other kids. It was especially hard when I entered high school and I felt like I wasn't very liked all that much, and I couldn't quite figure out why. I don't feel I was especially bad at practicing self-reflection and trying to address perhaps certain behaviors that may have pushed others away, and perhaps from time to time I was a little Even getting the INFP personality type gave me this sense of something to hold on to. And then being part of the community, I was able to reach out and find like-minded people, a place where I feel like I could belong and be myself, and that was very relieving. There's nothing inherently wrong about that, of course. As I said, these great philosophers that have come before us, many of them probably were shunned from society and people probably thought they were super weird. In fact, I know that to be 100% true. There is nothing wrong with diversity of thought and expression. That's something that should be celebrated in society. So going back to James's workmate and the whole scenario that happened, being normal is an insult. I grew up with these kinds of quotes. I mean, there's one from Johnny Depp that I held on to for dear life when I was a teenager. But what I find interesting about this particular scenario, where it comes in this context, is that when you Google being normal is an insult, look what comes up. I find it very ironic that in this pursuit of being different, that all of these images that are on these posters are all the same image of this woman dressed really scantily clad with a cigarette in her hand. Obviously, I understand that as a culture we have shifted from wearing dresses down to our ankles and up to our necks, but really this is exactly my point. Take a look at pop culture, for example. Who are the main people that are in mainstream music? What are the type of things that they sing about? How are they dressed? How are they presented to the public? What kind of messages are they putting out? What are all of these things within our media, within social media, the kinds of things that we see that are kind of pushed in our face? What are they creating? Do you think people watch these things, especially young, impressionable, naive people? They watch these things and think, that's cool, but I'm not going to be like that. I'm different. Or do they think, wow, I want to be like them because they're different? So with a whole generation of thinking in this manner, what is that creating? It's creating a new social norm, isn't it? It's creating a set of principles to abide by in order to obtain this sense of difference. The sense of difference creates a new normal. Let's just take a look at the Amish for a moment. Now, we consider them very different. I wouldn't last 5 minutes within their society because they would yell blasphemy at me. But to them, to the members of their society, they're absolutely normal and they look at us like we're weird freaks. But this is the point I'm trying to make, is that within society, within different social groups, there are different structures and different norms within those groups. So when a person is copying Lady Gaga and saying, I am celebrating this point of difference within me that goes against society. And when there are millions of more people like that, is it really a sense of difference, or are they forming a new group based on this principle of difference, that being the main purpose of why they are joined to that group? Really, was this dad all that normal? Yes, perhaps in terms of the majority of people within our society, he could be deemed as normal, but compared to other social groups, he's not so normal, because what is normal and what is different? So what might be the problems, let's just say, of the pursuit of being different? First, I think it's appropriate to ask the question, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of that group? As we looked at the start of the video, at the very core of forming social groups is to survive. As we can see in the West, our main objective isn't really to survive. The hallmarks of Western civilization is this idea of democracy and debating one idea against the other to progress us in a very positive way, instead of that purpose being survival, at least at the forefront. It's got much more to do with human discovery, exploring our human condition and how we can improve ourselves, how we can improve the human condition. But that might look a little bit different when it comes to, say, perhaps this pursuit of wanting to be different. What is its purpose? What is its objective? Is being different opening the floor to absolutely every single different possibility? Stereotypically speaking, how come then, say, for instance, a man who wears suits and who wants to rise to the top of the corporate ladder, how come he might not be accepted into this group of being different? Because we might assume that this man can only become successful because he's normal. So then being different becomes a lens in which we view life. And in a way, it's limiting. It has its own rigid constructs. Its purpose really is only the sake of being defined by being different. Being different then becomes the core of our identity. So there's this really smart woman that I follow on Instagram. So she says that the fixation with your identity limits your identity. I resonate with this quote very heavily because as someone who grew up being bullied, feeling very different from my peers, and also embracing that point of difference, I never did intend to make that point of difference being at the core of my identity. Yes, of course, I wanted to add my ideas into the changing society. Again, I think diversity of thought and expression is beautiful, but I wanted to have purpose with it. There was purpose behind who I felt like I was, and I didn't want to define myself by this point of difference. I didn't like the idea of labeling myself because I felt like that was limiting. The thought of being so wrapped up in a label where you can't invite any more information in to inspire thought or perhaps even change, to me felt like it was immensely being an ego. I think what our society needs is to still continue on this path of diversity of thought. Our universe is so vast, and as human beings, we are so limited in knowledge that I don't see any point in boxing oneself into such a tight paradigm does anything in the grand scale of things. We are merely just one drop of water in amongst an entire ocean. And there's so much more to discover and learn about the human condition, about the world, and that's something that we'll never stop learning. So anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on this particular topic. What do you think? Do you think that this dad kind of had a point? Do you think he had a little bit of a right to be upset about it? Do you think that he was overreacting? For now though, you guys, I hope you have a good day, night, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you guys all again for the next video. Bye!